TV crew. It's your man Braxton.
And it's Lady Tia.
And as you guys know, we like to identify those that are impacting the community, making a difference within the culture. Today, we have a very special guest. This person is a father, husband, and a son who likes to pay homage to his family and regularly reflects on the upbringing that he had in the South and in the Midwest. This person was an educational administrator for over 35 years and received his PhD from the Ohio State University. Now at the age of 75, he's a published author of the book, Because We Are Black and Reparations. Table View, please welcome Dr. Murphy D. Moultry. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing fine. It's good to be on Table View. I've watched a number of your programs and just excited about the opportunity to make a presentation.
Well, excellent. We're happy to have you here.
To have you.
Now, where are you based at?
Currently, I live in Peoria, Arizona.
Okay.
I moved here about 11 years ago from Columbus, Ohio.
Okay.
So I'm in my retirement and enjoying it.
Okay, that's good. So what made you want to start writing?
Well, the book came from a conversation I was having with a friend of mine. He was 78, I was 75 at the time. And we were just doing what old people do, and that is solve the problems of the world. And so I posed a question. I said, why do you think Black Americans, who are 13% of the population, only have about 3% of the wealth? And he came back with like a rifle shot and says, hey, because we're Black. Didn't have a good comeback. And so I went home and did some studying, and the research I conducted ended up in the book, Because We're Black, in terms of why Black Americans have a wealth inequality. Oh, and it turned into a book.
Okay, well, excellent. And I know that the book focuses on how there is that wealth gap due to many things being, slavery and systematic racism and things like that. For those that read this book, what is it that you want them to take away from it?
I want them to take away the fact that primarily from 1619, believe it or not, until about 1965, Black Americans have not really had an opportunity to acquire and build wealth. Mm-hmm. It has only been since 1965, or a period of about 80 years, that we've actually been able to be in high-paying jobs, be able to afford housing, where it increases our wealth, and then to pass that wealth on to their children. Mm-hmm. And so when people say that there is a disproportion in terms of wealth for the Black Americans, I want them to understand that we've just been working at this, been allowed to work at this for a very short period of time, about 80 years. So that's one of the big things I want people to take away. And the other is that because slavery and other kind of things were not taught in school, many people do not know the facts. Fortunately for you and Tia, you guys went to a historical Black college. And so you were exposed to more of that information than other Black Americans or white Americans or other Americans. Yeah. And so I want people to have facts and figures and not just emotions and opinion as they discuss these issues.
Right. And I'm glad that you mentioned that. I know that you were an educational administrator for quite some time. So I'm sure you're very familiar with how the facts were given. Can you tell us a little bit about what that experience is like and being sure that people that look like us are given the truth and actually have the facts of our history?
To be exact, for me, it was a very startling experience. Mm-hmm. Because I graduated from an integrated high school. I was born in Alabama in 1945. I moved to Ohio at the age of 5 and started going to an integrated school. And during those 12 years, I did not learn much, if anything, in terms of Black history.
Really?
Once I graduated from high school, I then attended college at Cap University in Columbus, Ohio, mm-hmm. and I majored in social studies and began my first teaching job in 1968. I know that's ancient history.
I was just thinking in my head. I was like, ooh, that was a while ago.
Teaching, which was during the height of the Civil Rights Movement. Mm-hmm. And so the class I had, I was teaching the history that I had learned, and it was white history. It was about what white people accomplished, nothing there about Black history or our contribution to America. And the students that I was working with knew something about Black history because they grew up in the inner city. I was working at a juvenile institution, and these juveniles were from Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati. So they knew some Black history stuff, and they revolted. They said, we don't want to hear that kind of stuff. We don't believe those kind of things. So I had to start teaching myself about history and combining the Black history and white history of America to make sense of it. So because it's not taught in school, people simply don't know. And after 40, 50 years of reading and studying Black history, I finally have enough information that I can actually talk about it in a sensible fashion.
Right.
Because I know me personally growing up, I went to PWIs my whole life until I chose to go to HBCU. Yes. And I didn't learn the correct history. Yeah. So that's why I appreciate my HBCU, North Carolina A&T. Go Aggies. But I do appreciate my school because I did want to embrace my culture and I needed to learn more. Yeah. But it was a great experience.
Yeah. And I understand what you're saying because you don't know what you don't know. And we got to be able to provide that information so that people can learn and be able to move forward. So I think it's incredible. You also, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, the fact that you don't know what you don't know, we Black Americans tend not to take the kind of pride in ourselves and our history that we should. And the fact that you went to historical Black community, Black college, was to instill in you that history that's missing. Right. So you two are very fortunate. You two and other graduates of historical Black colleges are very fortunate.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's great.
So what can the younger Black community do now to overcome economic inequality?
Start investing.
Okay.
I as a parent did not know anything about finance and money, those kinds of things. And so as a parent, I was not able to pass that information on to my children. So believe it or not, at the age of 65, I started investing. And I started my children to invest in because I was saying to them, you will not be able to have the kind of retirement program I'm having, because I was fortunate enough to become part of a pension program, and pension programs are no longer in existence for the most part. Right. So you need to be able to start investing your money, and by compounding your investment is where you will begin to build yourself a retirement program. And so most Black Americans do not have a sense of investment.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things I talk about in my book, is a whole chapter on how you invest. And one of the things I was saying to my children is, if you're in a company where there's a 401k, you need to take full advantage of that, because that's free money.
Yeah.
And as you take advantage of that and never touch it, it will grow in terms of compound interest for you.
Right. And I know that finances are always that one touchy subject that people kind of don't like to discuss. And, that adds on to it, because one, people don't know much about it, and it's always awkward to discuss with other people. So that definitely adds to it, in my opinion.
Right. But it's something that families need to be talking about at their dinner table. I mean, and of course, in today's America, maybe that's not as common as it used to be, but certainly it is something that parents need to know about, and they need to be passing that on to their children.
I always tell myself, a wise person once told me, don't work for money, you gotta make the money work for you. So
that is so true. I mean, and people don't understand. I don't think many people understand the impact of the thing that you just said. You have to make the money work for you.
Right.
And investing is the way in which to do that.
Yeah.
I did, you hear people talk all the time about Black people need to save, Black people need to save. Well, we did that. We were saving. And I looked at my bank account at the end of the year, and like I was getting pennies.
Yeah.
Absolute pennies.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I could have put the money under my mattress and made as much as I did with the bank. They're making money off of my money by putting it in a savings account. But if you take that money, once you have set aside money for emergency, and you can take that money and then put it into some kind of investment program, and the compound interest, it will make money for you.
Yeah, I believe investing. I've been investing since I was, I think, 0 years old. My dad, before I even came out, my dad's been teaching us since a young age. I think I got really into it at the age of 11, of starting to know exactly what was going on. And then just recently, Braxton's a part of our club. We have a longevity investment club. So it's like me, my sisters, and then all of our significant others that have that club of investing. So mainly my dad takes over teaching us how to invest and all that kind of stuff. So I do appreciate my parents for teaching us at a young age of how to invest.
Yeah, it's really insightful. We learn a lot. And it benefits us significantly, I think. So I think that is the thing. As long as more young people our age and younger are doing those kind of things, we can be able to close that gap sooner than later, I'll say.
So what we had to do is what Tia parents did with her, and that is we have to teach our parent-aged folks about investing, so they can introduce it to their children when they're young. So it just becomes part of their lifestyle.
Right.
And even if you're in a situation where you're underwater in terms of the amount of money you make and how much it costs you to live, I'm saying to folks, invest $1 every pay. You know, take $1, set that aside for your investment, and see it grow. Begin to develop that habit of investing.
Right.
Or as my folks used to say to me, you know, the first person you pay is yourself.
That's right.
Part of that paying yourself is to take part of that and set it aside for investment.
That's right. That's right. So you also discussed a little bit about spiral dynamics. And I'll be honest, that's something I've never heard of before. And I'm sure most of the TV crew hasn't either. Can you explain what exactly that is for us?
Okay. You understand what DNA is?
Yeah.
You have an idea what DNA is. DNA are the genes we get from our parents that determine our physical appearance. And it's fixed for the most part. Well, in 1950, a scientist, a psychologist, did some study with thousands and thousands of students to find out why people do what they do. And what he discovered was that we also have genes within our bodies that's called cultural kinds of genes that determines how we make decisions. And that cultural gene, let's call it, isn't fixed like DNA. What it does is it reacts to your environment and also your cognitive development. Your environment means in terms of whether you're stressed or happy or depressed, those kinds of things. So people who are very poor and you're scratching out a living, you don't have much energy for planning and doing some of the kind of thing we just talked about.
Right.
In terms of people cognitive development, we have what is called, people are either closed, meaning that I know the truth, I won't listen to anything other than what I already know. Right. Other people are arrested, meaning that they're willing to say, I think I know the truth, but I'm willing to listen to some other ideas and maybe be persuaded. And then there's other people who are open, who says, you know, I'm open to ideas and suggestions from other viewpoints. And so when you work those two kind of cultural things together, it determines where we are in what they call stage development. I guess it'd be a rather difficult kind of thing to deal with, but that's what we're talking about in terms of spiral dynamic. It's kind of the evolution of man in terms of where we are.
Right.
And in respect to other people. And there's different levels of that. that certainly we can't go into at this particular program. But I do think people need to learn more about stage development.
So in a way, it's explaining like how you are who you are based off of your DNA, but also you are who you are based on your experiences and what you're exposed to as well. That develops the entire makeup of that individual.
That's correct. It's based on your culture. So take Tia, who from a very young age was knowledgeable about investing.
Right.
There's some people who never heard anything about that. Mm-hmm. And in my culture, the stock market was a scary kind of thing. You did not even talk about it or invest in it or get involved in it because you could lose your money. So she grew up in a culture that advanced her in that knowledge. And so therefore she was more open to talk about investments.
Right.
Whereas somebody not part of that culture would not be able to do those kinds of things.
Right. And I agree with that, because I know I wasn't exposed to investing at a young age until I met Tia. Obviously, I was at the age of 15, so I was still developing, and they were able to have an impact on how I manage my finances now as well. So it kind of all pours into that idea.
Right. So therefore, because of your involvement with Tia and her involvement in investment, you were able to grow and develop. Right. Now, you could have been very closed to that and said, I'm not dealing with that stuff. I'm not going to listen to you talk about that. That would have been a very closed perspective.
You're right.
But because you were open and wanted to learn, then you were able to make some progress.
Perfect.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so your book includes personal photographs. Can you tell us about them?
The cover is of my family, my extended family. My grandfather, who is right here, and this is my grandmother. This actually is me.
Aww.
And this is my mother, my father. Now, my grandparents were sharecroppers in Alabama. And
what part of Alabama are you from?
Pardon me?
What part of Alabama?
Pike County, about the center of Alabama.
Okay.
But anyway, they were sharecroppers, and the people around us are my grandparents' children and their spouses. Okay? So my mother was the daughter of a sharecropper, meaning that every year after they harvested crop and sold the crop, they were more in debt than what they started the year out with. And so my parents, when they left the farm, then got out and got jobs and were able to buy their parent out of the sharecropping. And that's how he got into sharecropping. And so my mother and father only went to like the 6th or 7th grade. And so they didn't have anything that they could leave to me or give to me to start my life out. So I started at ground zero.
Okay.
Now, in my second book, Reparation, this is my mother. And so I actually do a chapter. Yeah, she has her hat on. And Black folks, they wore their hats to church and all those other kind of places. But I actually do a chapter in my Reparation book that's devoted simply to my mother and the hard times that she had.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Well, I love the way how you pay homage to your family and, really open up and show your roots and where you're from, but you also open up and show the development that you've made over the years. And, like for young people like us, we appreciate it because we get to see that stuff and learn from that kind of stuff to help us matriculate much quicker. So I absolutely applaud all of it. But I do got one question. So what are the next plans for Dr. Murphy D. Moultry? What's the next on your to-do list?
Next on my to-do list would be, as I move into this book thing, to market the book, get it out to people. I'm planning on doing some small group discussion with folks, just so that the book becomes what I call a conversation starter. In this particular book here, you have all the facts that you need in order to be able to converse with other people about why Black people have less wealth than their population. Okay. And so I wanted to put this in the hand of folks, so we're actually talking facts and figures and not opinions and emotions, and that we can actually start a conversation. So that's my next step, is to become an entrepreneur.
There you go.
How can they get in touch with you?
Well, you can go to my link, becausewe'reblack.com, and I have a Shopify store. I have an online store called Shopify, and you can order the book from this link, and I will then autograph the book and send it to you.
Great.
Nice.
Now, let me say this. You can also go to Amazon.com and buy the book. It will cost you $20, and they will send you the book, but it will not be autographed. But if you go to becausewe'reblack.com, that goes to my store, and I will send you the book. And again, what that does is what we're all talking about these days, and that is buy Black.
I love it.
Yes.
I love it. You got buy Black, stay Black, support the community. That's what it's all about.
Support the community. So this way, if you go to becausewe'reblack.com, it goes to me, I autograph the book to you, and I personally mail you the book out.
All right, TV crew, you heard it directly from him. Go to the link, buy the book, and this man will autograph it for you. We want him to get carpal tunnel from signing so many books. So we need you guys to go out there
and support.
Yes, please.
Support Black businesses.
Please. This is great literature, and this is something that I think every person should read, but especially young Black people. So we appreciate you coming on today.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, again, I appreciate you too.
Yes.
All right. Well, hope you have a great day, and hope to see you again on TV Crew soon.
Yes.
Absolutely. Bye-bye.
Bye.